We want to start off with a reminder that we are not doctors. Before you make any changes or try something new, always consult with your doctor and medical team first. Chronic illness can vary from patient to patient, so it's always best to consult with your own doctor for what is best for you.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of IBD Determined. I'm your host, Mason Harvey, and I have Crohn's disease. I speak from the role of a patient.
And I'm Michelle Harvey. I'm Mason's mom, and I speak from the role of a caregiver. And before we get started today, I think we should, since we always try to be like transparent and talk about what's going on in everything, our lives regarding IBD and whatever Mason's comfortable with.
So I might be going to a flare. Right now, it seems like it's not a big one. Yet.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird because some of the main signs aren't there. My appetite usually before the flare even hits, usually you can
decreases.
tell because my appetite I'm not as hungry as I usually am.
Yeah.
But my appetite is still staying the same, so that's good.
Yeah. We're watching your weight.
Yeah, my weight it's dropping a little bit, but not much. So it's not that bad.
And we think what's going on is because everything's been going really well, and they tried to do a treatment change to give Mason a little bit more freedom.
Yes.
Mhm.
We tried going to 5 weeks and then 6 weeks. And 6 weeks is a bit too much.
I think 5 weeks was too much because we haven't even got to 6 weeks. I think.
Can hope.
Yeah, we think. So
last time I did get to 5 weeks.
Yeah. And his doctor is keeping an eye on it. She is aware of it, and there's a chance we may have to go back to the infusion schedule that we were used to. The problem is you get a taste of freedom, and
you're like, oh, that feels so good. And you're like, dang it.
Has been amazing just to have like 3 weeks where we didn't have to go to a doctor's appointment, and that was incredible. And so it's kind of like, we were so excited about it. So that's kind of where the disappointment is. So, but we'll get through it and we'll figure it out, see if this is nothing or a flare. If it is, it's staying pretty steady. And you are getting a Stelara treatment on Tuesday.
Yes.
So hopefully that may
help something out. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So we'll see. So we'll update you guys next week and let you know how he's doing. But we've been just taking it easy, making sure he's eating, drinking his supplemental drinks, and just doing everything right that we can. And other than that, it's just kind of, we'll see what happens Tuesday when we get his Stelara. And that's in like 3 days.
Yes.
As from when we're filming this. So
3 days from when we're filming it, not when it's coming out. By then
you'll have received it. Yeah. So that's kind of what's going on.
Fun things that we go through in our daily lives.
Yeah. And I think it's important to share because sometimes you get really comfortable and you're thinking, wow, things are going really well. And, and then it's hard when you have a setback to not get discouraged and feel frustrated. But then, you get over those feelings and you're just like, all right, it's part of it. And we just have to figure out how to make the best of it and how to get him healthy again and keep moving forward. So that's what we're doing. And so since, that's pretty much all we got to share, and we're going to move on to today's episode. It's not too long of an episode, but it's an important one.
Yes.
And we're kind of recapping again. We're doing our series on IBD Day at Rady's and what was covered. And so today's is going to cover research, which was one of the things that was discussed. And so we're going to present to you guys the notes that we took along with a few other things. And the cool part is the research part was presented by
Dr. B, my doctor.
Yep, by his doctor, which is really cool. And she's just, we can't speak highly enough for her because not only is she a fighter for Mason and, for insurance, she doesn't let go.
No.
She is
she'll fight insurance.
Yeah, she's like, all right, who do I have to write a letter to? Who do I have to speak to? And she has all her research ready. She is excellent with that.
Yes.
And we have the utmost respect for her and her efforts, and even trying to give this 6-week break to Mason, between, because They do a lot of things realizing the lives of the patients
Mm.
too.
Like, it's not just the physical health, it's the mental health too.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you have to go somewhere. You have to have maybe you can't just not do things because of this disease. You have to try to do other
Right.
things.
And so that's
Yeah.
something they try to do is balance that. And so they had taken the levels and thought, hey, Mason
Can
can
possibly go
possibly
just
do
6
this with
weeks.
6 weeks. And
And
so
Crohn's is like, "Nuh-uh."
yeah, so and maybe it still will. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
Might work.
it
Solera might be that
happens.
little booster.
But I appreciate her trying and
Yes.
recognizing that it would be a better quality of life for you if we could
Get a
do
break,
that for
yeah.
many reasons. For many reasons. So Dr. B was talking about why research is so important in IBD. And this
Mhm.
is probably something not everybody thinks about. And I think it's important for us this is a great time actually to mention the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation
Yes.
because that's really well, it's not what they're all about, but it's a huge part
It's a huge
of what the
part
Crohn's
of
and
it.
Colitis Foundation is about. One of the things is that, the foundation is considered to be a very trustworthy source for all IBD patients,
Yes.
and it educates, guides, and supports them from, every step of the way. Wherever you're at in your journey, they're there to help. And I know some people, there's a lot of people are like, but, who is the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation? What do they do? Well, look it up, research them. They're very open about, where they receive funding from, where they donate to, what research they take part in, what they give back to. It's a great foundation. And so I think it's important because they're hand in hand with research.
I actually used one of their sources. Oh wait,
Yeah,
yeah, I did
you
use one of
did.
their sources. Yeah,
You
for a
did.
paper I wrote.
Yeah, you had an essay you wrote and you
Yep.
got to use them. Yeah, they're a great source. And I think since we're talking about research, it was just important to throw that in there and mention what a great thing they're doing. And this is why we're always trying to raise awareness and funds and support them however we can.
Yeah.
And so Dr. B started off with why research is so important.
Yeah.
And, we've mentioned on another episode our own experience with biologics. And I think anybody listening who's tried to get a biologic at some point, you've had a denial. And that could be when you were just trying to get the
Yeah,
biologic.
because it might be too expensive, and insurance is like,
And
nope,
yep, insurance is like,
can't have
no,
that.
not going to do that. And so maybe they want you to try something else first. And, or maybe you were trying to go from 8 weeks to 6 weeks or 8 weeks to 4 weeks, and you might have got, some kind
Maybe
of
they didn't want
denial.
you to try Stelara. Maybe they wanted you to try biosimilar of that. Maybe.
Right. So there's all these things, and one of the main things for Mason is dual biologics,
Mhm.
and because he's on two,
But not many Crohn's patients are on dual
no,
biologics, and I'm a kid on dual
right. So
biologics.
there's like a whole nother level
Yeah.
of rarity there, and so the thing that we faced when we were trying to get permission from our insurance is that there's not a whole lot of research out there showing the safety
No.
of this or showing the outcomes, how beneficial it is. So a lot of it, if anything, is done in the adult research world.
Mhm.
And even there's not a whole lot yet. So for us, our doctor had to really search and find articles and find doctors that had supported this and do her homework. And so it was really important that there was research out there that showed this would be effective for Mason. And luckily we did get that approval. So it was helpful. Speaking on, we mentioned this in we kind of touched on some of these. So you're going to hear a repeat a little bit of what we talked about in the
Last
the
episode.
last that overview of the whole Rady's Day. But one of the things is Dr. B is also an academic doctor. Which do you remember what that
I
is?
forget what that is probably.
So that's a doctor who also does research work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, research.
Right.
Okay, a
And
research
so,
doctor.
yeah, some doctors, not all of them, also do research, and she's one of them.
Who
So,
does research?
right. So that's an academic
Mhm.
doctor. And one of the hurdles they face is there's not as much data for kids.
It's hard to do research on kids,
Right.
probably,
There's
and there's not as many kids.
yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And there's many reasons why this research is so important for kids, and it's one of the things is it gives them access to new treatments.
Yeah.
And that
maybe
help
the
with getting
reason
those approvals.
and maybe, like, the reason why Crohn's can start out so young, in certain kids, and then, like me, if you're I got it when I was 11,
Mhm.
so they can figure out why maybe there's different kinds that affect different ages,
Right.
or maybe I did have it the entire time,
Yeah.
but it was, woken up by something that potentially caused it.
Yeah.
But, like, what causes it to wake up at a certain age or things like that.
And one of the other things we just talked about is the approvals too. It helps with getting those insurance approvals. So like everything you mentioned, very important to end getting those approvals for when you need a treatment. And it also it's kind of like what we do and what you do especially, because I say we as a team when we talk about caregiving and patient, but you as a patient, it gives you an active part in healing and giving back as well.
Yes.
If you were to be able to participate in research, I think that a lot of adults get to do that. And I think, if you're a child trying to make that decision, I think, you found a lot of healing in being active in it and
Yes.
speaking out and attending events. So you really, that was very healing for you. And so I think research and volunteering is another
Because
way to do
it's
that.
not like I can't be a nurse, I
Mhm.
can't be a doctor, I can be a speaker, I can't donate blood to people who need it, but I can help
Raise
awareness
awareness. Yeah.
and research behind all this stuff, and that's the best I can do currently.
And so that's kind of something for you guys to consider out there if you have kids and they've been asked to be a part of a research project. Also letting them know that it helps future kids. And so some of you might feel like, hey, well, is this going to help me tomorrow if I do this? It's like, no,
No, it's gonna help future
it's going to help
generations.
future. It may help you too.
Yeah, it
I
might
mean,
help you when you
yeah.
get older,
And
but
depending what the project is, depending
yeah,
what they're
depending
going
on
to
what the
do.
project is.
But yes, but knowing that you're going to help someone in the future is so important. It's really important to look at it like this and not just stay focused in your day and what's going on in your life. And
Think of the lives you could save, of the potential lives you can save in the
Mhm.
future of people. They may not know you, but you know what? You can see all these people that you're just changing lives, and it's
Right.
so
Just like
cool.
all the people who had to be in the test groups in Remicade
Yeah.
before it was a popular
Yeah,
drug, or
those
Solera.
people didn't
Or
know how it would work or affect them,
no.
but they tried it, and
And because of that,
because of that, it's a drug that is used for people today.
yeah. So there had to be a research, there has to be something going on before these can get approved. And so there's a lot of brave people out there and really kind people who were part of those studies and have changed the future. So we're looking at a lot of this like, well, what's it going to do? It's like, well, maybe we're not going to see the results tomorrow, maybe not a year from now, maybe not two, who knows?
But it could change something.
Yeah.
And that's
So
what
it's
matters.
important and it has to happen.
Yeah.
It's important to keep this going. And so something else she covered was something called principles of research. One of the things that she went into when she's discussing this is that it is voluntary. So they're not going to take like Mason, be like, Mason, you have to do this research project. You're not going to be like, no, I don't want to.
They're like,
Yes, you are.
oh, yes, you are. I'm like, no,
Right.
I can decide if I want to do
Yeah.
that.
And so, I mean, that probably seems like a lot of common sense out there. You're probably thinking, well, of course they can't force you, but it is voluntary. So you don't have
It's
to
good
do
to
it.
know.
Right. And there's nothing that's gonna be held against you if you say no. It's like, no, you don't have to.
Mhm.
And they also have an institutional review board that they report to as the doctors for the standards and for how these are being conducted. It's very different having a child with this disease than being an adult, because like Mason's not going to go in and be able to give permission to do everything.
Mhm.
I also take Mason into account and we have discussions before we make decisions for him. So having consent and assent from parent and child is very important for a research project.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's important to make sure that everybody is on board, make sure your child is on board, and that is what they're going to check. They're going to make sure that not only is the parent, the parent might be like, "Oh my gosh, this is a great idea. It's painless, it's an easy one. It's just, whatever it is for this research project." And the child might be like, "No,
No,
no, I don't
that's
want to."
okay.
And so they're still not going to force a child, even if a parent is adamant. So it's very important for them to have, the whole team. And that's how we do a lot of stuff with this is having, taking everything into consideration. You can also, like we had mentioned, you can withdraw at any time. So if you get started on one and you're like, this is more work than we thought, or it's not working with your schedule or whatever it might be, just don't want to do it anymore, you
You just-
can withdraw.
It's not like if you start it, you're forced to keep doing it.
Mhm.
You can just stop at any time you want, and you're not forced.
Right. So it should give you more confidence going into it. Like, what if I don't like it? Well, then you just say, no,
I'm
thank
good, I'm
you.
good.
And so, in addition to being able to withdraw at any time, there's incentives that they can give you to participate in these. I mean, among the incentives of just trying to help out and understand research is important and necessary, some of the incentives can be monetary. They may pay you for your time. Some can be medication. So say they're trying something new. Maybe you've been through a bunch of biologics and everything has failed you. And so maybe there's a new medication and you can get it for free.
Yeah, yeah, I can get it for free.
That's a
Whoa.
big deal.
Getting a free biologic that costs
Yeah.
$21,000.
Yeah, getting it for free is a big deal.
Wow.
I mean, it's even a bigger deal if it works. But
Yeah, it's a
but
better- it's a
maybe you've
bigger
tried
deal.
things and maybe you're not feeling well, so trying that would not be a bad option and
Yeah.
you would get your treatment for free.
If
So
everything else hasn't worked, heck, why not try it?
yeah,
You
see if
might
it
be
works.
you might find the new Remicade.
Yeah, that would be really cool to be a part of, to take something and feel better and realize, oh my
It's the
gosh,
new next generation
there's a new
of
drug
yeah.
that helps people.
But like if it didn't work for you and the other ones
Mhm.
didn't work for you, it's like the next generation and they might be able to figure out what's in that is helping you that's
Yeah.
not helping other people. And maybe there's something behind that. And you might find the next generation of biologics by doing that.
Yeah, which is kind of, I mean, I think Remicade is like the old school now.
Yes,
And like
old
you're in
school.
some of the newer ones. You're more the new generation with, with Stellara and
Yeah.
Entyvio too. But then there's even newer ones now like Skyrizi and Rinvoq. Like there's even another generation. And so there's more generations of these biologics that keep coming out. And I think it's incredible. And
Just like you know how there's the baby boom, I guess you could call this the biologic
yeah,
boom.
a biologic boom. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, there's more than ever right now, and that's due to research, which
Yeah.
is incredibly important. And
Research is great.
one of the things we joked about last week is
Mhm.
something like a free MRI. But maybe you're in need of an MRI, and maybe your insurance doesn't want to pay for that, or maybe you don't. Your copay is really high, and so an MRI and colonoscopies are kind of part of your regular maintenance.
Yes.
Like if you're, for someone with Crohn's, and so
Yeah, they're quite pricey.
yeah, they are. They are. And so maybe something like a free MRI is a great incentive
Yeah.
to you out there. Like, okay, well,
Free?
cool. I can have
Oh.
that done. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
so there's things like that. One of the things she mentioned, which I'm not going to go into all of them because they're specific to our hospital,
Mhm.
but there's 5 different areas of research that our hospital is currently working on. And like some of them, there's like 11 other hospitals working on things. And so they're part of a kind of a cohort where this hospital is working with 11 others or 10 others or whatever it is. And some of you might be listening going, well, where do we find all these research projects? And the answer is with your doctor. Like they told Mason, more than likely they're going to contact him if they want him to be a part of something. Mason doesn't have to walk in and say, so
Hey,
do you,
can I be part of whatever
do you
this
got
is? I just know what this is. The
They're-
doctor's gonna ask.
right.
Yeah.
The doctor's going to come to you and say, hey, you fit this profile. This is what we're looking for. So that's kind of how it will happen. So maybe some of you out there are part of a research project, which that's really cool. And we're happy, happy that it's happening like that. And we'd love to hear maybe if, let us know. You don't have to tell us exactly what it is, but if you are, let us know that you volunteer for something that you guys are part of a research study. So it's pretty cool. Something that I looked up, this is, beyond what she talked about, the need for novel therapies is really important for kids. And one of the reasons, and I looked at it was Dr. Jan Weekamp. I believe that's how her name is pronounced.
Camp, yeah.
And yeah, she did an article on the importance of pediatric research in inflammatory bowel disease. So one of the things that she mentioned, and I'm just going to kind of read from it so I don't mess up what she said, but children with IBD must manage the disease for a much longer duration than adults. And disease symptoms and management can interfere with life milestones for kids. So you got to think about it. They're growing, they're progressing through puberty, they're trying to be physically active, maintain their mental health and wellness. And in addition to school and all other sorts of things, they're planning for adult life. And so these are
certain biologics may stunt growth. It might make you
steroids.
yeah, they might make
that.
you feel tired.
Right.
So you may not be as active.
So all these things, it's a lot for a kid to go through.
Mhm.
And so what she said is like these interferences can go through an entire family. And when complications from the disease and the disease management, which we've talked about, disease management is something like she said, including doctor's visits, hospitalizations, and infusion therapies. And it can require families to rearrange work, school, extracurricular activities, and sometimes it's at a great cost. And I don't think a lot of people think about that and the impact it has. And if Mason had siblings, it would also impact them as well, because I know our lives have been impacted and changed greatly.
You can't take them all to the hospital.
No, somebody's
there's
got to get them to school.
so maybe like dad would have to stay
Yeah.
home and she would have to drive me to the hospital. Then he'd have to drive down to the
And
hospital.
even for like infusion therapies, when they're like theirs are during the week and
Yeah.
having to take off work and get there and then make sure you're getting paid because somebody has to pay for those infusion therapies. And school, like we're homeschooling. And so some people homeschool, and that's a whole nother time factor to consider. So children with IBD and their families, it's a lot. And that's why it's so important to try to continue research because things need to change. There's an
And help
unmet
people.
need. There's an unmet need for novel therapies in pediatrics. And so like one of the facts that was in this article, as of 2023, there are only 2 approved biologic therapies,
Mhm.
and those are in the same class.
Only 2.
Yeah, which I believe it doesn't say what it is, but I believe it's Remicade and Humira
And that's
because they're in the same class
And there's only 2 that are approved for
kids.
kids. Okay. For
2
kids
approved
only.
biologic therapies as of 2023. Things may be changing from when this article was written, but
It's 2024 now.
and the problem with that's the same class. So if you take
Yeah, so if one
Remicade,
doesn't work, then the other one's not going to
Right.
work, most likely.
right,
If the first one didn't work, there's a very good chance that the other one's not going to work.
right. So if the only 2 that are approved are from the same class,
How's
that's
that going to help?
limiting. And if it was like in your case, you're on 2 that are not yet approved, and that's where we had a fight. And so anyways, a lack of treatment options means younger patients do not have the same access to therapies adults have. So adults out there, you guys can try anything you want. There's, well, I mean, within reason and
Yeah.
what your insurance says is okay, what your budget also says is okay, but they're available to you. And we're for kids, they're not. And that is there's so many more hurdles to jump through to get a child access to the same therapies that maybe you as an adult are taking right now.
Come on, insurance,
So-
can't you just help a kid?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they don't have the research there to
No.
say, hey, this is safe for him,
Yeah.
and so they're like sitting here.
Because
Yeah, so they have a loophole because they can be like, oh, we don't have to pay for it because there's nothing saying it's safe for his
we
age.
don't know what this is anyway.
Right. And so they're like, all right, so we're trying to sew up those loopholes and make it harder for insurance to say that and put research out there showing that these do work. Like someone like Mason, how he is doing. And you can see right now too, we just adjusted the small
Yes.
change in treatment, what
What can
happens.
happen?
So things like the timing, things like the dosage, everything is really important. So but the other thing that you're listening to and you're hearing us say this is, well, how do we test on children? And that's
Yeah.
the problem right there, because it's not ethically acceptable for any doctors, or parents to like say agree to like give one of the kids, like say you have 2 kids and you're like, okay, one of you's going to get a placebo, one of you's going to get the real drug. Oh my
not
gosh,
gonna
like
work.
the one who got the placebo could do terribly, and you can't do that to a kid. Now, if an adult consents to it and says, yes, I understand the risks, yes, I want to do that, that's different. But you cannot do that with a child. I guess what that does, it makes it impossible to design a perfect study in pediatric IBD because you don't have that control group. You don't have a group on placebos. So there are, though, definitely ways to still get quality evidence of a study. And so that's what that's what Dr. B was mentioning. So you can still get a good study. You don't necessarily won't be able to do it the same way adults do it, but it's
No.
still important to figure out a way to do it and how to do it safely. And that's what they're doing. So any of these research projects on kids are being done safely and again with consent. And
They're not just
they're not going to be giving your kid a placebo and like, well, we'll see what happens.
That's so messed up.
It would be terrible. So, and the other thing to consider is dose selection and safety might be different for a child than an adult. So what is approved for an adult may still not be safe for a child. And so anyways, with all of this, it's just basically shows you that there's still hurdles to get through, but research is extremely important and we need to keep these things going so more kids have more options available to them. And the more options really available to adults, they do become available to kids. Just harder, you have to fight a lot harder for them. But it's important to still do the research in the adult arena because kids will benefit from that. But it would sure be great if they could do more for the kids. So insurance, that we don't have to go through 2 months of fighting with insurance to get permission for something the doctor is saying will help your child. So
To help
anyway.
find research to help kids and maybe adults.
Yeah. And it's a good time to mention Take Steps again.
Oh,
I know we
yes.
mentioned it last week, but Take Steps is happening here, our local one. There's ones all over the United States, but we're all coming together. Everyone's, forming teams. It's just a fun way to do it. But
Yes, we're all
everyone's
forming teams and we're heading to the battle. Just kidding. We're all going to take a walk.
yeah, just a walk.
Yes, it's one big family.
A walk, but battling IBD together.
Yes, battling
So
IBD.
raising funds to continue to find new treatments and breakthroughs and hopefully a cure.
Yes.
And so that's what it's all about. That kind of wraps up what she talked about and a few things we want to mention from that article, and just kind of remind everybody out there that if, it's entirely up to you, you don't have to feel pressure into anything, but just want to remind you of the importance of
Research and testing.
yeah. So with that, you guys can follow us on Instagram at Team IB Determined, and you can, see all kinds of things going on in our life.
Fun and little adventures throughout our lives.
Yeah, watch those, see
Yes.
just what's going on in our lives. You can also follow the Reggie Project if you guys want to share part of your journey and take a picture of you with Reggie. We can post it on there. So if you haven't done it, please do it. We'd love to see some kids doing that. Even if you don't want their face on there, you can put an emoji over the face, or you can just show
Maybe,
Reggie, zoom
there's
in.
Reggie and I'm over here.
Yeah,
Or you
like
can
you're
have
not
like
there.
this. Out
Right.
of the shot.
Right. So we'd love to see that.
Yeah.
And then if you want to continue listening to us, if, depending how you do, you listen to us on any podcast station on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
And if you are on YouTube,
because you can watch us on there.
Yeah, make sure if you want to watch us and you want to listen to us, make sure you go to YouTube. If you are on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to be notified every time we post a video, make sure to hit that bell. Make sure you can leave a comment if you want. Maybe help us out with video ideas.
Yeah, what you like to see us talk about.
What you're related with in the episode. What brought you to the podcast.
Yeah.
If you just
We'd
want to
love
say
to
hi.
hear. It helps. It helps because it's going to help others. It's like research.
Yes.
It's helping us do our research so we can do better for you guys.
We will respond.
Yep.
We read every single one.
We do.
Yes.
And we appreciate it. And we're thankful for all of you listening. And we're hoping that we're helping you guys in some way and you found value in today's podcast. And we'll be back next week. I believe we're still going to, unless something changes and we want to talk about something else, but we're planning on still kind of breaking down the IBD day and what the doctors talked about. I think we're got a few more things to talk about and share with you guys that are really going to be important.
Yes.
So you guys have a great weekend.
Rest of your day.
Week, evening, morning.
By the time this posts, I hope you had a great Easter.
Yeah, if you celebrate
Easter. Celebrate Easter, I hope you had a great Easter.
And if you don't, hope you just had a great weekend.
Had a great weekend, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week to see you on the next episode.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. We hope you will stick around, tune in, and reach out to us with your own journeys. We are excited to give you an inside view of what it takes to be a caregiver and what it's like to be a patient.
And most of all, we hope you'll maybe be able to apply something you hear on here that might help you in your own life. Sometimes life changes, and it's all about how you handle the journey.